what is often claimed to be the earliest picture of a UFO. This image was captured from the summit of Mount Washington, New Hampshire in 1870. This photograph depicts a cloud formation over the summit of Mount Washington in the winter of 1870 to 1871, along with the added surprise, as you can see here, where we can see a obvious, clear, cigar-shaped craft or object in this image, which is part of an antique stereo view. The description on the original image reads, quote, "Summit, Mount Washington, winter, 1870-1871. Now, at the end of an online eBay auction, which took place on March 4th, 2002, Independent International Pictures Corporation President Samuel M. Sherman announced that his company had won at auction the oldest known UFO photograph, which is what you're seeing above. After several days of feverish bidding, Sherman won the photo for his company in the last 50 seconds of the auction with the final high bid of $385. The photograph is a stereo 3D view of clouds over Mount Washington. Plainly and sharply visible in the photo is a large cigar-like object. Since this is before known manned flight, with the exception of balloons, which this is obviously not, the object was ruled as a solid, unidentified flying object. The structure and characteristics to this solid object is clearly and sharply seen in some detail, as is the reflection of the sun off of the object. This image was captured in 1937 in Vancouver, Canada, where Leonard Lamoureux, age 21, was on leave from the army when he visited Vancouver City Hall to view and photograph the Christmas light display. Along with him was his brother Wilfred. The two were suddenly astounded to see a, quote, bright blue light drop straight down from the sky. It became larger as it did so, and they were able to observe the source of light as an object that Leonard described as two saucers, open ends facing each other, glowing bright blue. The object then moved dead straight horizontally across the sky. When it just appeared to clear the flagpole on the roof of the city hall, it came to an almost dead stop, and Leonard clicked the shutter on the camera. The object then shot straight back up into the sky. They never seen anything fly so fast, they were quoted as saying, that this sighting scared them so much that they fled from the scene. The object is reported to have made no sound. This is a 1940s image taken in Europe during World War II, and the UFOs seen within, often called Foo Fighters, were very rare, especially in the context of being captured on film. Two of them are seen here following an aircraft of the ARF during World War II over Europe. Although reports of sightings, which were eventually termed UFOs, can be traced far back into history, students of the subject have arbitrarily placed the beginning of the modern era in the mid-1940s with the appearance of UFOs over both European and Pacific theaters of war. These UFOs were called by many names, all of which revealed a lack of understanding of their nature and source. To the Allies, they were called Kraut Fireballs, or Foo Fighters, with the latter term surviving. It is believed that the Germans and Japanese saw them also. Reports of unexplained, transparent, metallic, and glowing balls began in quantity in June 1944, at about the same time the Allies invaded France, and Nazi Germany began launching V-1 flying bombs aimed at London, thus starting the era of the unmanned missiles. Reports intensified in November 1944, not long after the first German V-2 ballistic rockets were fired at London and Paris. Pilots and their air crews reported that the odd things flew in formation with their airplanes, played tag with them, and generally behaved as if they were under intelligent control. This image was discovered by a young Japanese student going through his father's scrapbook of photographs from the China campaign just before World War II, who discovered a straight cone-shaped object in the sky above Tinson Street. A number of people in the street are looking up, and two are pointing up at the object. A sidewalk photographer snapped a picture of the strange machine, and his father bought it from the street vendor for a souvenir. The 1942 Los Angeles, California sighting has lived in infamy since its capture. On February 25, 1942, at 2:25 p.m., alarm sirens installed in the event of a Japanese air raid are started, as flying objects are seen and announced in the sky off of the city. A blackout is declared, and the anxious and even terrified inhabitants follow the instructions by turning all the lights off. At 3:16 p.m., anti-aircraft guns open fire on the unidentified flying objects coming from the ocean. The projector beams are searching the sky. There seems that at least two different types of machines are flying over Los Angeles. Witnesses observe small objects flying at high altitude, of red and silver-plated color, moving in formation at high speed, and untouched by the AAA salvos. There is also a larger object which remains stationary for some time, as you're seeing in the image above. Then, when lighted by the projectors above Culver City, starts to move at a constant speed of 100 kilometers per hour in the direction of Santa Monica, and later southwards in the direction of Long Beach, where it goes out of sight. 1,430 6-kilogram shells have been used. No bomb has been dropped by the unknown flying objects, and none of them could be shot down. This image, taken in June 1945 in Burbank, California, was taken as Jack LeMond sits on a horse, twice wounded while fighting with the U.S. Marine Corps in the South Pacific. He was then home on leave. The exact date is not known, but the location is near the Pickwick Riding Stables in Burbank, California. In those days, this was a relatively rural area, and equestrian stables were common. The photographer was his father, a motion picture producer with extensive technical experience. When the film of the camera was later developed, they noticed the unusual object above the horse's neck. It was attributed to either an airplane in the distance or a speck of dust that had gotten on the negative. However, a later analysis of the photograph deemed this structure to be neither, and as of today, the object remains unidentified. On July 9, 1947, on Catalina Island, California, 3 Army Air Force veterans reported 3 flying discs over Catalina Island, and former aerial photographer Bob Young said he succeeded in photographing one of the objects as seen in the image above, which Young took as one of the discs passed over the island. The equipment of the steamer boat below are seen. This very mysterious and compelling image here, which is often misidentified, was captured on March 20th, 1950 in New York City. The cylindrical-appearing UFO was photographed by a man whose name was deleted from Project Blue Book's files, as were most names when the material was finally declassified and released. Upon investigating the report, Project Grunge officially labeled it, quote, the Moon. Some ufologists have speculated that tubular objects of this sort may be motherships, purportedly capable of taking on and discharging smaller craft in poker chip-style formations. On August 31st, 1951, 4 students from Lubbock, Texas, were sitting in the backyard of one of their homes watching meteors when they observed a group of lights passing overhead from north to south. The lights had about the same intensity as a bright star, but were larger in area. The altitude was not determined, but they traveled at a high rate of speed. The pattern of the lights was almost a perfect semicircle, containing from 20 to 30 individual lights. Later in the evening, a similar incident was observed, and during a second period of about 3 weeks, a total of approximately 12 such flights were observed by these men. The objects were further observed by at least 100 people in and around Lubbock, Texas. Journalists working for O Cruzeiro magazine, a Brazilian publication, on May 7, 1952, were covering a groundbreaking ceremony near Copacabana when they saw a strange aircraft approaching. Cameraman Ed Kessel snapped 5 black and white photographs as the UFO came directly over them, circled them, and then flew back out to sea. The developed prints showed a clearly outlined and sharply detailed solid-looking disc, estimated to be at least 50 meters in diameter and 5 meters in height. Brazilian Air Force investigators tracked down at least 40 people who were in the vicinity that day and were witnesses to the object in question. Yet again, we have another disc, this time captured in 1952 over North Korea. There's not much information about this sighting. However, what's important is the clarity of the object in the image itself, and as one more piece to the puzzle confirming that these discs do and did and continue to exist. This case occurred on July 16, 1952 in Salem, Massachusetts. At 9:35 a.m., the witness, Shell Albert, took this picture of 4 roughly elliptical blobs of light in formation through the window of his photographic laboratory. Albert was a Coast Guard seaman assigned to the base in nearby Salem. This photo has appeared numerous times in the Salem Evening News. What's strange about this sighting is that the first analysis by the U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book concluded that it was, quote, probably a double exposure hoax. A second analysis by Blue Book concluded that it was, quote, probably reflections of street lamps on the window. Finally, the case was considered unexplained by Project Blue Book. Lastly, we have an image taken on July 19, 1952, in Peru, where at 4:30 p.m., the attention of Customs Inspector Domingo Trincoso, then with the Peruvian Customs Office at Puerto Maldonado, on the jungle frontier with Bolivia, was called to a very strange cigar-shaped flying object over the river area. The large craft was flying horizontally and fairly low in the sky, passing from the right to left from the observer's position. It was leaving a dense trail of thick smoke, vapor, or substance in its wake. The object was real, structured, and a physical machine, and was also seen from its reflection in the waters of the river underneath it. The object was estimated to be over 100 feet long. What you've just seen were some of the earliest examples of photographic evidence depicting UFOs, alien craft, or even man-made craft. However, many of these photos were captured before airplanes or any type of manned flight even existed. So let us know what you guys think down in the video description, and be sure to check back when we release part 2 of this series, showing more of these amazing photographs taken throughout early photographic history. I am Tyler with Secure Team. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for much more.